Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Turning Point. Nathan will be joining us next week, and we're still trying to bring Edo back on the show. I think he's dealing with some issues regarding his X account, and I think he's taking them to court now. So let's
Oh,
all
wow.
hope he succeeds in getting his account back. David, it's so great to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Great to see you. I mean, it's always a pleasure to come onto this program and really love the subjects we got booked for today. It's going to be exciting.
It is. We
Yeah.
do have a lot to unpack today, but from now on, moving forward, before we begin today's podcast, we're going to start bringing everybody up to speed on just the market overall, so you know where we stand in all of this before we unpack everything moving forward. So, for starters, it's important to note that gold did just hit another all-time high. It
Hmm.
broke 3,600. Silver also broke through its resistance. This is very positive for metal holders, and platinum prices are now starting to climb. So
Yeah.
that's important to note, but cryptocurrency as well is about to make its move as we enter the business cycle. And in the
Agreed.
meantime, yes, the dollar continues to weaken. And all of this is going to tie directly in today's conversation. But
Hmm.
that's essentially where we stand right now.
Yeah.
David, do you have any quick comments before we unpack everything?
Well, I think, like with some of the subjects that we got there, the biggest one has got to be this pending interest rate adjustment from the Federal Reserve because, the debt market in my mind, and I think if we really looked at it, it's the beating heart of every other market. And it begins and ends with the debt market. And we know that with the central bank, with the pressure that it's under to do this 25% basis point reduction, probably on the 17th, but there's a lot of folks out there thinking, hey, this may even be a 50 basis points reduction. That right there is going to set the stage for the weakening dollar, the appreciated, price of a lot of equities and this digital asset space. It's going to be the launching pad, and so I think that is such a major deal. And of course, that is why we're seeing a brand new all time high for gold is because of what they're doing to the dollar. I mean, they're decimating the dollar. The dollar is already weak on the global stage due to the opposition with BRICS, as well as it's lost the petro status where you'd have these various OPEC countries assuring that any of their transactions only going to happen in US denominated transactions. That's off the table. So we know the dollar's under tremendous pressure. And when you lower the interest rate like they are going to do, obviously they're going to turn on the press and print. And of course, you're injecting more dollars into a system that's already, crippled, so it just devalues all the rest of it. And for me, I really believe that this is something that we need to be really focused on, in this digital asset space, because this is where we're going to start to see some big time appreciation. That's my thoughts on that.
Incredible. And you're spot
Yeah.
on. I
Mm.
think it's important to note, you know, I don't get any of my information from US sources as much as I used to before. I have
Right.
to look and pull information from all around the world and
Hmm.
try to observe what other nations are saying, what other nations are doing. And then I try to bring that stuff back home and cross reference the research with a lot of the headlines you see, like this one right here, for instance.
Hmm.
Um, even among the people who believe that we're having this awakening, I'm not trying to derail the conversation, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to look at the bigger picture of what's going on, and you're going to get all the
Mhm.
news from outside of the country, not necessarily from the United States. And funny enough, last week we had a very deep discussion about how stablecoins were going to be the buyers of US debt.
Yeah.
And ultimately, right, this was going to prop up the currency essentially. But the problem was, and this is what we mentioned, that the stablecoin would be a solution in the short term to buy up debt, but
Hmm.
ultimately it's not the real solution. And if you look
Hmm.
what's happening around the world, for instance, they want to now back the stablecoin with US treasuries, and they're going to sell it off as a mechanism to be positioned as a global standard for payments, for trade, for other reserves. But that's just the surface level information. So it appears like progress to everybody else. But when you start to look deeper into it, it runs much deeper. because the adoption of these coins, these stable coins, I'm sorry, what it's essentially going to do is channel foreign capital directly into the US debt market. And in effect,
Mhm.
start to look at this, the world is trying to right now finance $35 trillion in debt.
Mhm.
Basically gives power to Washington to externalize the borrowing that they're doing while trying to retain full
Yeah,
control over their currency. And the sad
yeah,
thing is that over in due time, what people don't realize, they keep embracing this as innovation, right? But ultimately, if they can consolidate the debt and then devalue the dollar, and when that devaluation happens, I mean, who really holds the bag here, right? The losses are going to
mhm.
fall entirely on the stablecoin holders, and that's the
Yep.
problem. So it's
Well,
brilliantly disguised as a method for really
mhm.
offloading risk onto the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, they've lost the ability to, because they've had a number of auctions right now for, their debt. Nobody's showing up. Very few are showing up. So they have to, of course, incentivize them with higher rates, all this kind of stuff. And they can't obviously do that in a big way. So, of course, who's buying, the treasuries right now? Well, of course, it's the central banks. And the other thing is, though, with stable coins, because of the Genius Act, and as we mentioned last week, stablecoins will be required to hold treasuries in order to back themselves. So now they have a kind of like a guaranteed client to buy their debt. And you're absolutely right. We are still on the same downward spiral that we have been on. The whole thing is a dog and pony show. It's masking, it's just putting a band-aid over a gaping wound that is the demise of this current fiat system. And I think it's going to buy them a little bit more time. I do believe that. So I think that, yes, we will see a major collapse in it. Will that be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road? I'm not sure. But I do think definitely the bag holders of these stable coins, when this system totally implodes, and we don't know what the absolute catalyst of that's going to be. But I do think that when it does, the holders, the bag holders are going to be, the ones bearing the brunt of that pain. Now, having said that, I would say right now, from a market standpoint, we are seeing like new all-time highs in the Dow, in the Russell, and all that. And when you think of it, and I've asked people to do this, to look at, where we are with the market on the 100-year chart. I mean, it is really terrifying to think, if we see a breakdown, and if it does, ultimately collapse, that collapse is going to be so significant that it'll plunge the world in such an economic chaos that it has never ever seen before. I mean, not even the 1929 Great Depression will compare. And the reason for that is primarily the you back at that time, you did not have, your average citizenry carrying a massive amount of debt. Consumer debt is just beyond belief in terms of credit cards, lines of credit, mortgages, car loans, all of that kind of stuff, which of course, relates to, all these industries that support the building of new homes and the creation of new cars, and on and on and on. That cascading effect is going to be beyond devastating. And that's where I
Mm.
believe they will completely flip the switch. We will see a new system where you're going to watch universal basic income. You're going to watch decentralized identities. You're going to watch, all of the network of this new digital economy is going to rise from those ashes. But there's going to be a tremendous amount of pain as we go through that transition. At least that's what I believe will happen. That's my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Um, I
That's
think
where hard assets like what you support, Versam, are going to make the tremendous difference. I mean, real hard assets, gold, silver, platinum, land, stuff like that.
I agree with you.
Hmm.
Not Bitcoin, and we can talk about
Not
that later.
Bitcoin. Bitcoin's probably going to be the biggest rug pull that has ever hit this digital asset space. Yeah.
But it's gonna have to go higher first before they rug
Mhm.
pull it. It's a
No
prototype,
utility.
damn it. Why won't people understand this? All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the good news, I want to give people a positive angle to all of this as well,
Yeah.
because we embrace this technology in a sense.
We do.
We try our best to teach it. We're positioned in it. And the
Hmm.
good news for the listeners here is that looking further down the road, you can speculate and even acknowledge that the Federal Reserve, for instance, they're actively incentivizing banks to do business with crypto exchanges and
Yep.
crypto companies, right?
Yep.
Everyone has seen the video, I think. Um, and this is really a major positive step for anyone that's holding prime, unique digital assets, in my opinion. And those are the ones with real utility, a strong use case, and some
Mhm.
digital tangible value, you could say. What I do believe also is that the banks have been quietly positioning themselves for this for a very long time. And they've been front running many of these developments. You could see this. The proof is out there, right? And that
Right.
validates, again, the infrastructure and the legitimacy of high value digital assets. And as I've explained before, and you and many of us in the space, that XRP, it really still catches my attention at the end of the day. I do see select investments here, but ultimately XRP does function as digital collateral, and it allows holders to borrow against their crypto without triggering a
Yep.
tax event. That is
Yep.
going to come in due time. And that's going to be a game-changing feature that's now gaining more attention across the ecosystem.
Mhm.
You can listen to other YouTubers. Now they're starting to talk about this as well. So this growing institutional participation signals something bigger,
Yep.
right?
It
And
does.
that is, of course, the evolution of the digital asset landscape, but
Yep.
in part of the broader global wealth transfer into a digital tokenized system. So,
Mhm.
obviously, for those who understand it, many of our listeners here, this is an incredible opportunity, but of course, it
Yep.
comes with responsibility, right?
Yep.
Um, and that's what we teach in these courses, how to make sure you also protect your digital assets.
That's
And of
for sure.
course, holding the right technologies that give you some leverage and independence to a degree in the new financial framework. Any
Yeah.
comments?
Well, no, I am so on page with that because the reality is if you want to front run what's about to happen, you are going to need to position yourself into the new system before, the basically the whole wide world is on it. I mean, and I do believe that XRP is going to absolutely take a lion's share of what this new economy is going to look like. I mean, Ripple is out there, the number one developer of central bank digital currencies. We know that, that is the backbone of everything that's going on. Even though Scott Bessent here and of course President said, hey, no CBDC in the United States, the fact that they're going to use stable coins, to underpin the dollar, that pretty much tells you that it's a public-private partnership. Now, we did get a question here that I wanted to kind of address in the comments, and it's from Matt Watkins, and he writes, if or when we have a reset, what will happen to personal debt and mortgages? And I think this is a big time deal, especially when we're wanting to prepare ourselves for what's coming. I think a lot of personal debt, mortgages, and all that, if we see the collapse that we're probably going to see, I do believe that there will be a reset, but there will be a payday for that. I'm not a big um, component of the Nasara Jasara kind of deal where all debt is wiped out. We all get a fresh start and everybody gets to own what they've got and all that. I think that debt would be removed, but I also think that is a situation where the whole WEF mantra of by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy kind of deal that's where that will come in. I think that that ownership will probably be removed and you'll categorized into this whole universal basic income kind of deal. And if you have not positioned yourself in presently in the way that we are now, I think at that time it'll be next to impossible to get to a place where you're able to do it because all monetary instruments will be, digital. The monetary policy will be right in the monetary instrument. If you don't spend it within a certain period of amount of time, you probably won't have the ability to do it. It will be monetary control at a level we've never seen before. So there will be a trade-off, but that trade-off will be acquisition, like basically submission to the state, whatever that looks like at that time. That's what I think is going to be the end. It's going to be, you're going to have the rich, you're going to have the poor, and you're going to have the poorer. The middle class is being decimated here.
Yeah, it's incredible. And
Mhm.
like you said, the Genius Act is really greenlighting the whole process here. And of course, the upcoming Clarity Act is going to finalize it. And it's something important to note there that if looking forward, if regulations are truly enforced, and this is something I've taught on my sessions, and I really
Mhm.
believe this, that
Yeah.
If they're actually enforced, you're going to have to see audits, and it's going to be required on Tether and many other
Yeah.
stable coins.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that eventually is going to happen, and it could certainly scare capital away from unregulated or shadow bank style stable coins like Tether. And
Yeah.
of course, it would be consolidated into regulated ones like RLUSD. So I do
Yeah.
believe that there is going to be a consolidation phase in crypto. And we're
Sure.
already hearing and seeing this, right? And naturally, that's going to increase demand for XRP, pushing pressure on its price and creating a supply demand scenario that we've all been anticipating for a very long time.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there is no avoiding it. I mean, we are on a collision course with a brand new system, and there is zero avoiding it. And if people think that this is just kind of like an option, or that this is like a reaction to the circumstances the economy is facing, and now they're coming up with the solutions, no, this has been pre-planned for many, many years before we even had this whole deal going down. I know in Canada, the Jasper project started in 2015 in the development of their CBDC, and they are ready to release that practically at any time should they have to do it. And so, no, this has been pre-planned, and there's no avoiding it. And I do believe that you will see, like a lot of these ones that are like Tether, for instance, not being able to pass those regulations. I do not believe we'll see a crash in Tether, so to speak. I think Tether will be just slowly pushed right out of the ecosystem altogether. Boof. And I do think you're going to see assets like RLUSD rise and just gobble up that market share big time for sure.
Very good point. I have a video here I want to play for everybody. I did work on it to increase the volume. Hopefully you
Okay.
can hear it.
Okay.
This is Chris Larson from
Yep. I
2015.
recognize him.
Yeah, Chris Larson from 2015. Very informative. I'm going to put this on X later on.
Yep.
Okay, let me play this for you.
You betcha.
We agree that this is the beginning of an internet of value. That is now possible. It wasn't possible before Bitcoin. Bitcoin showed it was possible to do this. Ripple's taking that and with using a different technology based on the same principles. But the key thing is we think just like the early days of the internet of knowledge, going back 20 years ago, that internet would not have value unless you got the key custodians of knowledge on board, the universities, the research facilities, think ARPANET, Stanford. We think we're in that same period with the internet of value, that before these technologies have key utility, we have to get the custodians of value on board first. And those are the banks, financial institutions, market makers. Then I think we're set up where these things can have tremendous value across the board. And so again, the value these things bring are speed of payments, seconds from days, the ability to correspond directly bank to bank, with much less counterparty risk in process, and with fundamentally more competition for foreign exchange and liquidity for those institutions, which will trickle down to the businesses and consumers that use those institutions.
Such
Yeah,
a
that's
powerful video. I
powerful.
mean,
Powerful.
short, concise, and
Yeah.
powerful, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can go on and on about this as we have
Yeah.
for many years now. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw a comment in here about somebody saying I'm completely wrong. Well, let me first
No.
of all clarify. I have a 6-year track record now
Yeah.
of calling things accurately simply because
Mm-hmm.
I understand how these things are playing out. But more importantly, I have dissected them to a degree that most people can't fathom. Um, anyways, so
No, it's a
that
good point. I mean,
it
the
makes
amount
sense,
of
right?
the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours Judy and I ourselves been in the space for over 5 years, and we have invested literally probably, and like you, thousands and thousands of hours. I mean, we're not even able to bring out every resource that we've been able to find and stuff like that. And you have made some amazing connections yourself and Vendel together, amazing connections with respect to where we're going and why. It's not so much the what. Remember, it's great to have a what, but you need to have a solid why, the rationale for why these things are happening. And you've been spot on so many so many instances, Verson, on the rationale, the why this is going the way that it is. And I think one of the things there, to point out what Chris Larson was saying, remember, Ripple has been heavily criticized in the digital asset space, that, oh, well, you know, when it originally came out, a banker's coin. They have been so criticized for working alongside the current infrastructure to evolve us into this new economy. But that has got to be the best, most strategic game plan you could possibly imagine. I mean, Bitcoin came out and it was supposed to be such a disruptive technology that, oh, we would be able to interact with that and circumvent the whole banking institutions altogether. Well, and now the narrative, of course, with Bitcoin is, oh, it's a digital store of value, digital store of value. That is not what the white paper had ever said that it was going to be. And if you haven't read the white paper, please, I would encourage you, go do that. Read what it was supposed to be, because in its current form, it's nowhere near close to what they had hoped or said that they wanted it to be. Furthermore, the powers that created Bitcoin, research that, and you'll find out that this was just a distraction from day one anyway, because shortly after, almost immediately after, and David Schwartz was one of the engineers that worked on Bitcoin, right? XRP comes along to solve the problems that Bitcoin could never solve. Massive. And so we know that there has been strategy afoot for a long time. And, you know, to just casually, oh, you're wrong. Well, why is Verson wrong? Prove that. You know, they can't. They're, you know, because we have the evidence. You have the evidence and you're presenting it.
I mean, yeah, and it's almost impossible to cover all these angles. It really is. I mean, it would take hours and hours, and you know, I'm happy to do that sometime. But that's why I put these articles out on X. I encourage people to read them. I really take my time to write these things, and I try to give you each of these angles. But every disruption has a prototype before the real utility is brought in. Okay, we see this historically, even with the dot-com bubble. And in my opinion, I think Bitcoin, the white paper alone, if you dig into this, it's a military grade blueprint. I'm not saying it's military technology. It's military grade blueprint that's repackaged for civilian consumption. And it was the illusion of decentralization that served a dual purpose. Number one, it allowed people to control the narrative, to hide their hand and the true motives behind it. That's why no one knows who Satoshi is. That's bullshit, right?
That is.
The second thing is it gave the public a sense of ownership over a system that was engineered by the very same institutions that thought they were resisting it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's called controlled opposition in a digital format, though, right? So it's kind of obvious when you really begin to look into this stuff. And Bitcoin, by extension, and most other digital assets, including Ethereum, they were never intended to overthrow the system. They were simply designed to restructure it from the ground up, but giving the appearance of evolution while maintaining control through new rails. And it's working flawlessly, in my opinion. And then there's the other argument about artificial liquidity and artificial markets. Like, and that ties into Tether, which ties us back to this conversation about stablecoins.
Yeah.
So there's a positive side to all of this, but there's also a negative, right?
I think the positive side is that. Go ahead. I'm sorry if I.
No, please.
No, I was going to say the positive side of all of it is the fact that, you know, we have the ability right now to invest in these protocols. Now, of course, not every one of them, you know, is going to be utilized. Let's be honest, out of the thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands, we're probably only talking about a handful, 50 or less, that will have any real staying power. But the fact that we are able to buy assets that were never meant for retail, I mean, never. XRP was never meant for retail. And we can go right back to the drawing board and what it was intended for. We've seen it all. And you look at the linkages, you know, between Ripple. I mean, out of the gate, these guys were interacting with the International Monetary Fund. I mean, the Bank of International Settlements as well, central bank of all central banks. Then, of course, many other central banks and this and that. Like, I've never heard of any startup ever getting that kind of exposure ever. And yet they did. You had somebody who is the Secretary of the Treasury resign her position there when she left office and took a position on the board of Ripple, this unknown little financial startup. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, the dots that you can connect are phenomenal. And yet, most folks are oblivious to the nature behind it. Now, I do believe this is a big reason why Edo was kicked right off of X. Had nothing to do with anything that he did wrong. He did nothing wrong, but he was starting to expose some really deep connections and getting people to think and ask questions. Well, I don't think that was, they didn't like it. And so away he went. And hopefully he's able to get that platform back. But you don't have to dig too deep to start to see some of these linkages. And I know that from your story, that's what you and Verson, or that's what you and Vandel Verson did. You guys started down that road, and you're like, my gosh. And I have encouraged people so often, look, guys, go out there, really research it. Your eyes will be open bigger than you can ever imagine. And the fact that we can invest in these protocols, it blows my mind. It really, really does. Blows my mind.
I mean, when Vandel and I first, I'm not kidding, this is a story I've told a few times, but 2000, I think it was 2019, 2020, before we stumbled upon these documents. And we were trying to get invested in this ecosystem. We wanted to be at the forefront of something, right? We wanted to really have an opportunity to make money, take care of our lives and our families and our loved ones. And it was like 1 week after Vandel and I invested for the first time into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and XRP. And we started doing the research into crypto, and we couldn't find anything on XRP except that it was the second largest cryptocurrency out there by Bloomberg reported. And Vandel and I took 1 week to look into each of these. And I'm not kidding. We came back after a week later. We looked at each other. We had goosebumps and we said, holy shit, this is the one.
Yeah.
And my message ever since, even though I tend to talk a lot about all these things, but my message on this channel has been very simple. There's a deliberate framework that is designed to suppress XRP and its infrastructure until the infrastructure was fully built and the legacy systems were ready to migrate. And basically, if XRP were allowed to operate in a free open market these days, right? Without the artificial barriers that we dive into in all these discussions, I guarantee you it wouldn't be hovering around $3-4. No. And my question is, how long is the suppression going to continue while the very same institutions enforcing the suppression are adopting the tech and preparing to flip the switch, as they say?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And it ties into so many of these questions I see in here about Trump's new stablecoin, for instance, and just stablecoins being issued. Think about it like this. Stablecoins essentially are debt-backed digital tools that rely entirely on the infrastructure that's provided by a neutral bridge asset in due time, right? And that's XRP. So every stablecoin that's issued out there, whether it's USDT or USDC or any of them, are going to require later on down the road. I believe this is something that's gradual, that continues to play out, right? But they're going to need these fast, scalable settlement systems so they can function globally if they are going to survive. So the infrastructure isn't the stable coins themselves. It's the technology that underpins it. And
it's the protocols. It is the protocols.
Right.
You're absolutely 100%. I mean, the fact that RLUSD runs on the XRP ledger, I mean, they've conditioned it so that also run on Ethereum. But the fact is, it is the protocols. And that's what we're able to actually get into and invest in. Now, someone has said, well, if it's never meant for retail, why is it, being sold at all on the exchanges and this and that? You have to remember, we created these markets, and the number of people globally that hold XRP, the number is so minusculely small, it would blow people's minds. In fact, I constantly are meeting people that have never even heard of it. They're completely oblivious to what it is. And that's what really shocks me now. The Bitcoin maxis are going completely nuts right now because they realize, and this has been a proven fact. If you had, and think about this, if you had bought XRP versus Bitcoin the whole time, like right back from 2013, 2010, all the way through, you would have been more up on your XRP percentage return on investment than you would have Bitcoin the entire time. That is true. You know, from majority of the time, you would have seen Bitcoin and XRP. XRP would have had a greater return, you know, for the majority of the time, percentage wise. We're not talking dollars, we're talking percentage wise. But needless to say, forget about the market and the supply demand issue. It's what these protocols solve. They are solving such humongous liquidity problems. You know, the whole fact of real world asset tokenization, which is massive, massive, massive. Bitcoin can't solve liquidity. It can't solve real world asset, you know, tokenization. You know, it is not a medium of exchange to the degree because it can't handle the speed of transaction, all of the things that they say it was intended to do. And this is where I do believe, like, look, when Bitcoin came around in 2009, it was the first public, you know, showing of like SHA-256. Well, where did that encryption come from? That came from the NSA. Is where that came from. And, you know, you got David Schwartz. I mean, research the guy's history. Like, there's no way that was created in a vacuum by some computer nerd sitting over there, you know, working on his laptop or whatever. That is hogwash. You know, come on. It was a strategic plan. And yet you can see in fact, it was David Schwartz who actually went out and got the patent back in the 1980s for what XRP is today. Yeah. Come on.
I mean, this is the biggest financial cover up in history.
History, yes.
Of what's going on right now. And, you know, to add some flavor to what you said, I want to start with the smoking gun then. And that is constantly ignored in the Bitcoin space. And it's the 1996 white paper. That was the National Security Agency that published the white paper on how to mint a cryptography of an anonymous electronic cash, right? So the document, it outlines the cryptographic framework that we see today. And it mirrors exactly what Bitcoin's white paper was. So basically, it was the National Security Agency, which is part, by the way, of the CIA apparatus, if that doesn't bother you enough, where all of this was already laid out, groundwork laid out years in advance before the 2008 financial crisis. And that's not a theory. That's a fact.
That
and
is
of course, people are going to leave silly comments. I see them all the time. Where's the link? Where's the proof? You know, go find that shit yourself.
We have it.
And the truth is the programming embedded into those who don't take time to do the deep dives, like many of us here, they're not going to see it. You know, you have to research it to believe it and to see it. But you will realize that it's a prototype for a digital cash system. You know, what are the odds of all of this, right? That the first practical implementation of this idea was in perfect alignment with the earlier blueprints of quantitative easing. That followed the 2008 financial crisis.
You can't make that up. I mean,
let's be realistic, right? Anyway, so it's very interesting. I do want to play one more clip.
Go ahead.
From the Russians. They warned us about how the stable coins were being used to offload debt, $35 trillion debt onto the whole world by pushing stablecoin adoption. And if you can remember what we said last week, we talked about how the problem was with stablecoins is that they were still pegged to dollars, dollar-denominated assets, dollar-denominated debt. And that's the problem, right? It's not really the solution. And this is why we always emphasize you need a neutral, liquid, cross-border solution, right? That gives people the sovereignty so other governments can thrive and survive, right? And that's exactly what this tech does. It's built for a multipolar world, and that's what we need. You know, no one wants to be subject to the United States anymore. All right, give me 1 second.
Go ahead.
Here we go.
Америка прямо сейчас пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой у них долг. 35 триллионов долларов. В общем-то, это два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынков. Действия Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрируют одну из главных американских задач. Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет...
I had to pause it for a second. I know it's in Russian, but I hope you guys can read the subtitles. I will be posting this on YouTube, but the devil's in the detail. The U.S. plans to solve its financial problems at the world's expense. You see? All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to continue.
всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми словами, у них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг, они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех, кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
Did you hear what he said? That's the reality for those who are so enthusiastic about crypto.
Right.
And basically, they're trying to offload the debt onto the whole world.
Yeah.
And start from scratch.
Well, when he said he cited the 1930s and the 1970s, we know what happened in the 1930s, confiscation of gold, confiscation of gold. And then, of course, in the 1970s, what did they do? They took the US dollar off the gold standard when they had a liability to all those countries that, said, hey, we are holding on to your debt. And at that time, remember, a dollar note could be redeemed in gold while the US weren't able to do that. We know that for a fact. So they took, and they, of course, accused the speculators of manipulating the gold market. It had nothing to do with that. We know that for a fact. And so he's citing those two major monetary shifts where, we had seen it before, and they revalued gold, didn't they? I mean, they I think what they did is they took it, and I think they were paying out $20 an ounce, and then they revalued it to $30-some an ounce, and then they kept gold price suppressed, for a long, long time until they were ready to let it go. Now, when they did let it go, gold went from $30 to $800, just like that. It was a massive. And what are we seeing right now? We're seeing an all-time high price for the price of gold, and we know why: devaluation of the dollar.
That's correct. Yeah. And I think it's important to note also, somebody in the comments made a statement. The dollar is really a weapon, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
It's a proxy for the military industrial complex to push other nations into a world order. That's been the ultimate agenda. And you can peel back the layers and really see what the agenda was, right? Taking people's freedom away by taking us off the gold standard. But if you look at how they've done this historically, they've done it very systemically, but in a way where they don't create such panic. They don't just take it all at once. They do it little by little by little, so you don't notice. And you're struggling to pay your bills, right? Just to survive, and you don't notice, or you don't have the motive to take action on what you see happening. So it's just incredible to see just where we are in history right now. That's why we called this show The Turning Point, because we are indeed at a turning point. Anyways, so one thing I do want to make a comment as far as the title, right? How is stablecoin issuance and demand going to increase the price of XRP? First of all, it's important to note that without the backbone of what we see stablecoins being issued on, for instance, or the infrastructure that has not been realized yet,
right,
the stablecoin market would collapse under the strain of global adoption and high volume transactions. What am I trying to say here? Basically, as stablecoins continue to proliferate, the demand for XRP as a neutral bridge asset is going to grow exponentially, meaning every transaction, every treasury operation that we see happening, every cross-border payment that will leverage stablecoin channels will demand through XRP. So creating the network effect that will boost both unity and scarcity, utility as well. So this is going to be a direct driver of upward pressure in the crypto market. And that's how you get supply shock, because XRP is unique in a way. It burns with every transaction. So as global stablecoin adoption continues and accelerates, the volume of transactions that are routed through XRP will grow, meaning that more XRP will be burned even faster. When you combine that with the finite total supply of XRP, and it's 100 billion, which is not shit when you compare the global economy and factor everything that's put into motion right now. You get a scenario where demand keeps rising while the available supply steadily diminishes. And that's where you get an inevitable supply shock.
I think you're absolutely 100% right. I know you've lifted this up here. I do have a little clip I want to show that reinforces that point. But before we get there, I thought you might want to address this, what you put up here.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Please. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just share. Now, this used to be available and it has been scrubbed. It is no longer available, but this shows you everything that you need to know. And I'm going to see if I can't find it right there. That's what I want. And hopefully you guys are going to be able to hear this. Now I'm going to start playing this at a, way into it, because there's only like a minute and 30 seconds that I want you to see, but just watch this right here. If I can get this.
Debt risks. CBDC data is fully controlled and auditable by a central bank, allowing for its analysis in support of monetary policy. And the data maintains transaction privacy while still allowing for regulators to monitor for criminal activities. Finally, a Ripple-designed CBDC can provide a means to bridge disparate currencies through XRP. Its inherent interoperability can allow for connection with other central bank ledgers for efficient cross-asset and cross-border transactions. This can be done with cross-issuance, using XRP as a bridge currency or via cross-ledger communication protocols. This reduces the risk that institutions are forced to accept when transacting across multiple networks or currencies in the current system. The creation of a CBDC provides powerful benefits for the economy and people of an adopting central bank. It's technology that places trust in digital money in the hands of a central bank that can guarantee accessibility to funds and the resulting services, as is the case with cash today. The result? An improved foundation for global financial development where businesses, commercial banks, and ultimately people can unlock new economic potential. Work with Ripple to build a custom pilot designed for your country or institution today.
Now, what I want you to focus on is this. At the end there, because basically what you were talking about is when you're dealing with stablecoins or central bank digital currencies, monetary instruments, mediums of exchange, units of account, store of values, and what. As each bank, now at that advertisement, at the end there, it says, reach out to us. Have your country reach out to us or your institution. Who was that advertisement for? Was it for us retail? No, it was not. It was for central banks, and it was for major international financial institutions. And they have definitely, like, that was done so many years ago. It's no longer available, but it gets right in. Now that's a 4.5-minute video, so I didn't play the whole thing, but I played the part there where it's showing the cross-border facility that XRP is going to hold. Why is there going to be demand for XRP? Why is there going to be supply shock for XRP? Because XRP is going to be needed to absolutely cause the settlement between the various stable coins and central bank digital currencies. That is primarily its killer use case, and they are employing it right now.
Well, this is why I always bring up this document here from Ripple, because it gives the best explanation. And I really think, the ultimate driver of the XRP price is going to be the operation through the operational scale that it needs to support, right?
Right.
So to settle, for instance, $1 trillion daily, for example, the system is going to require holding around 10% of that value in XRP to ensure that the real-time settlement without any slippage or price disruption. Basically, when you factor in then 100 billion worth of XRP, it must be liquid enough and readily available at all times. Exactly. And given XRP's fixed supply of approximately even $50 billion, 50 billion tokens, then, that implies a higher valuation to support that level that it needs to satisfy the demand, basically. So I always believed, like you said, and hence that video, as its use case continues to expand, and it spans tens of trillions in tokenized markets, CBDC interoperability. Let's hope we don't ever have CBDCs, but
It's
it
coming
can.
and there's no avoiding it. That is a fact,
Yeah.
Jack.
No,
No
I
avoiding
totally
it.
agree with you, but I'm trying to give people some hope. But this is why we have these discussions, right? The CBDC is inevitable, in my opinion, because you have too many people out there that are buried in debt, and if the currency gradually fails, and it's going to fail eventually, how are you going to service these billions of people, right? So
Right.
again, yeah, the interoperability aspect as well, and of course, cross-border settlements. So the XRP price will have to
Yeah.
rise accordingly to meet that demand.
Right. Let me share this right here to kind of like reinforce what you had just said there.
Let me put that down.
I'm just going to pick the right window here. Let me just go back over here. Sorry. I'm going to have to close this off and open up over here and go right here. And let's see if I can't do it.
While you're doing that, can I address a question?
Yes, please.
Somebody
Yes.
mentioned that. Did you guys hear that Trump said yesterday that trillions will be investing in the United States in the next few months? I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that when they're saying trillions are going to be invested in here, you start to think about how the government needs to finance roll over 70 trillion in debt and the business cycle and lowering the rates. So essentially, investing in the United States means printing more money.
Printing more money, which is the role of every central bank, is to inflate until the whole thing bursts. And like I love to say, the people that set the fire are going to be the ones that show up with the hose. And to that point, and your point specifically, I want to share this right here. Now, I have shared this before on
Well, it's
prior.
good to share it again.
Yep. But
Yeah.
this is comes from the Atlantic Council. Now, the Atlantic Council organization is not necessarily a blockchain crypto organization. They report on a lot of stuff, but right down here is a central bank digital currency tracker. And if we go down here, what we're looking at is an interactive map of the wide world. I like to point out there's Canada, there's the US. You can literally click on all of these links in here. There's the Bahamas. I mean, we can literally go through Central and South America over into Africa here, seeing all the various countries around the world, into Europe, of course, Asia, of course, all the way down. You got Australia, Micronesia. I mean, everywhere. Now, I just want you to ask yourself this question. Do you honestly believe that all the central banks around the wide world, all of these are central banks, that they are not out there? They're investing billions upon billions, if not trillions of dollars in the infrastructure of a new global monetary system. Do you think that they are doing that without ever having the intention of employing it? That's the only question I get to ask. I mean, in that regard, and I'll just stop sharing that, but in that regard, I think the information is readily available, and it's just that you're not hearing this. You are not going to hear it from the mainstream media. You are not. And when we are transitioned into it, I believe it's going to be because of a cataclysmic event financially around the world. They are preparing the railroad for, what's coming. And people will beg for it. It won't be imposed upon them. They will want it so bad that they will be willing to answer a question that was really early on, to walk away from private ownership in order to have, security and that whole salvation, economically, because I think it will be that bad. But I think before that time, we will see a monumental rise in the value of these things. This is where you want to be so strategic and really understand what you're doing as a participant in this space, and what you're looking forward to down the road. That's where that whole Economist article, I think it was in 1988, where it had the phoenix rising from the ashes, all the symbolism right in there. I mean, you literally could practically write the words Ripple and XRP all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny actually is you have also the Stellar logo in there. And when you look at the complementary relationship between the two, what I found was very interesting. It seemed almost like Ripple, while they were taking the shots from the SEC and growing exponentially all over the world, Stellar was able to keep the momentum up with them. Very interesting, but get no headlines. And what I started to, speculate on was like, okay, well, it's interesting. Well, for instance, SHX built on the Stellar network, Velo built on the Stellar network.
Yeah.
But SHX specifically, you see Ripple investing heavily into SHX, Stronghold.
Mhm.
And when I started looking even deeper into it, it would turn out that SHX is a bridge. Also, it does other things as well for the Stellar ecosystem, but it was a
Right.
bridge really between the stable coins that were being issued
Mhm.
and the on-demand liquidity that XRP provided. So it was a stablecoin bridge between, I mean, a bridge from stablecoins to the ODL. And I was like, okay, well, that's very interesting. That would explain a lot why Ripple is investing heavy in SHX. But what it came down to is like, wow, Ripple's been financing and investing in Stellar's infrastructure.
Yeah.
And, then I started piecing all these things together about that complementary relationship.
Very
Um,
complimentary.
yeah, I found it very interesting, and a little bit disturbing because how did I miss that? And then my question is simple. How do you really benefit in a multipolar world where technology is being specifically designed to bypass a debt-based framework? And you
Mhm.
have to invest in the technology that seems to exist outside of it. And
Mhm.
the only thing I come down to is like something neutral, um, debt independent infrastructure. And I think
Mhm.
that's what XRP is, right?
Mhm.
I think XRP is a neutral bridge asset that just gives countries back their sovereignty. It's even in the
Mhm.
documents here. It
Well,
talks
that's what
about
the X
giving.
stands for, it
Mhm.
doesn't it? It stands for agnostic. It's not nation based. It's not centralized in that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays
Very.
out. It really is.
Yeah.
I do
But I
want to
think
share.
if you know, I think if you know in advance, it's just have the ability to kind of survive the transition. Things are the most volatile at the end and at the beginning. If you're able to navigate that and you're able to survive that and you're able to tuck some of this aside, it could generationally, in my view, my personal opinion, generationally benefit your family. I really do believe it.
Of course. I mean,
Mhm.
we've done very well so far.
Mhm.
And we're just
Mhm.
getting started.
Just getting
So
started. Yeah.
I really believe so. It's just I keep getting goosebumps every time I see things unfold, and for many reasons, but it's almost like, watching a movie when you know how the
It is
ending turns
surreal.
out, right? Yeah. So I think, this community, we're incredibly blessed to be together. Um, let's go ahead and wrap this up,
Yep, go
but
ahead.
do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Well, the only thing I would share, I want to share something that transpired over the weekend. So a lot of folks know that, like folks like Versan and myself, we have a lot of imitators. They will get onto TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, of course, X. They'll use our avatars, they'll use our images, they'll use our videos, they will do everything to convince you that we are truly them, which we are not. And of course, they scam so many people and hurt so many people that are getting into this space because of their naivety, or, they want to see appreciation faster or whatever, but they work off of that motive. Well, I was contacted by a special agent with the FBI over the weekend. And I know that this person is, in fact, a special agent with the FBI. So that's been validated. And they have opened up an investigation because so many complaints have come in with respect to imitators of myself, where people that are part of our community are being scammed so badly that they are asking us for assistance in gathering, information from folks as to how they've been contacted. What was it, a DM? Was it this? Was that? How much were they scammed for? On and on. And so, it's generating, a big time result. And I think that, yeah, the policing of this is going to be a whole lot greater than it was. Most of us, by the way, Judy and I included, have suffered some level of scam as we've interacted in this space. And so I just encourage folks, be as vigilant as you possibly can, because I know Bursan right here and myself, we will never, and I mean not ever, reach out to you to get you to pay for live streams or get you to do this or that or DM you or try and, you know, get you to, hey, we got a great plan here. You just send us some of your, no, we are not going to do it. And so if you have been a victim of anything like that, look, I have set up a specific email, FBI@thedigital.outlook.com, where you can write in, share your story. That information will be passed on to this squad in the FBI that is now looking into this heavily. And so I just want to make the community aware of that.
No, very incredible points. Um, I've tried my best to deal with scammers, and you know, they use a lot of other platforms too. I just want to make it very clear to my audience that I don't use Discord, I don't use Signal,
Yep.
I don't use WhatsApp, and I certainly don't use Facebook.
Right.
I'm only on Instagram, and that's very, you know, private.
Mhm.
I don't post so much over there. It's a personal page, and I'm on X and then YouTube.
Yeah,
That's
me
it.
too. X and
You know,
YouTube. Yeah.
I don't have the energy to be on all these apps.
Right.
My God, man, everybody's on their phone 24/7. I'm trying my best to stay away from it.
Mhm.
But yeah, you could find me directly through blackswancapitalist.io, my website.
Yep. Yep.
And I do send an email to people,
Yeah.
but in the email, I do offer 3 alternatives for payment. So PayPal, but I do ask if you ever want, you're welcome to pay with XRP and XLM.
Mhm.
So I just want to make that clear. It's not a scam.
Right.
It's
No,
me.
no. That's where
We've
you've been
been
interacted
accepting.
with for your services, and that's a different story. That's how I act as well. So
Yeah, we've been accepting XRP for 3.5 years now. So
yeah,
I
that's
think
great.
I've noticed one thing though. I'll say this:
Yeah.
as more and more people learned about XRP, we see less and less people paying in it.
Who wants
So
to be the guy that, you know, put out his XRP that turns out to be so valuable, you know, for 2 pizzas.
exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh my gosh.
final thoughts for the audience here. I really appreciate all your support. Dave and I
Yeah,
do, and of
we
course
do.
Edo and Nathan, and my brother. I speak for all of us. But
Yeah.
you know, this is a critical moment in history. We see the
Yeah.
intersection of technology, finance, and of course global liquidity and other things. A spiritual battle, I would say.
Yeah.
So just paying attention to the facts. Forget all the noise. Try to channel that shit out. And the narratives that are pushed around it, just understanding how these things are playing out. That's how you're going to survive and thrive in the years ahead.
I agree with that. And there's such a joy in being able to come and do this. And from the perspective of, look, we have helped so many and we want to help so many people to kind of, you know, at least wetten their whistle so that they will go out there, because you're getting our biased opinions here, but we want you to go out there and really research this stuff for yourself, guys. Really do your digging and put those skills to work and get your critical thinking going. Don't rely on Grok and Chat
I've
GBT
noticed
and all
that.
that. You know,
Rock said this.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, you kind of acquiesce a lot of your analytical thinking, and you got to get to know it right down in here. I always love to say you can miss the whole thing by 18 inches right from here to here, and you don't want to do that. You want to actually, and there's only one way I know of building that. You build up that reservoir of conviction by going out and getting the answers, and the answers we find for ourselves, certainly the ones we trust the most, I believe. But Versan, Judy and I have been watching you ourselves for years, and you have been an invaluable resource, man. And I really appreciate that. But you coined a phrase recently, and I want you to share that with these guys, because I want you to be able, because guys, I think you're going to hear this. You are going to hear this all over the place.
Yeah.
But this came right from Versan Algera. Go ahead. Tell us what it is, man.
I coined a phrase called cross asset solution. So if you ever hear that, never forget that. I guess it
Yep.
came from here.
Yeah.
Like many of the other insights that have been provided in this ecosystem. But I
Yeah.
would like to put that on the record. Cross asset solution. And I am referring to the intertwined use case of RLUSD, the stablecoin, and the XRP itself. There
Yeah.
is indeed a cross asset solution there. And that's how this is playing out. So
I
we'll
agree.
take
I
that for
agree. And
next week.
apropos for this, stablecoins will trigger an XRP supply shock, which I believe we will see, guys. It
Oh
will.
yeah,
And
mark
when
my
it
word.
happens,
That
bam,
headline is
fast.
accurate. That headline is accurate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, love
Well,
you guys. Thank you, man. Really
you too,
appreciate it.
man. And thank you to the whole audience. I really appreciate all the support. Keep it up.
Yep. Keep it up.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye.